Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we're talking spray paint, rattle can paint job on an automotive type panel. How good of a result can you achieve with rattle cans? Let's do it. All right guys, this is a front fender that came with my son's 2009 Jetta because, well, his fender had a big old rot hole right here. It's not perfect. It has some dents, some dings in it, and I was gonna try to work them out, but one, I'm not a body shop. Two, the creases kind of follow into this body line, which would make it extremely difficult to get rid of. It's paper thin, so I might make it worse than it already looks. It does have a dimple here. I'll probably take care of that. Some rust here and on the inside. We'll take care of the rust. We're gonna sand this whole thing down. Again, we're not getting rid of all the dents and the dings. We'll clean it up, get it sanded down, and get it painted, and see how good of a finish we can get using rattle cans. You know, this isn't like a professional paint job. This is my son's first car. The car is red, the fender's white. We're just gonna get it close and get it matching and see how well we can do with something off the shelf rattle can wise. Now with that being said, we went through Seymour and got the actual paint code off the car, which is located in the trunk on this car, and it's actually called Salsa Red for Volkswagen. So the fender's gonna be Salsa Red, but before we get to that point, we're gonna take care of our rust. We're gonna hit it with the Spray Max 1K self-etching primer. So we're gonna prime this fender and any Bondo we may have here or there on a couple little spots. Like I said, we're not going overboard. But we're gonna prime it with a rattle can. We're gonna probably hit it with maybe 600 between coats. And then we're gonna top coat it with the single stage Salsa Red paint, meaning this does not need a clear coat. So we can go ahead and buff this out afterwards and really get that gloss red to come through. All right, first things first, I'm gonna grind down the areas that are rusty. Like I said, these things are paper thin. There's nothing to them. So you gotta be careful. You're gonna grind right through it. And I'm gonna dent this back down because it's a dimple from the inside. And then right on this wheel arch is a couple more dents. I might Bondo those as well, but the creases in here I'm not gonna touch. Then we're gonna sand the whole thing down with a 220, 320 grit and start our priming process. All right guys, so basically right now I hammered that dimple down, so we'll add a little Bondo to that. I sanded the whole thing with 220 grit to kind of just flatten everything out. I'm gonna hit this with some scuff pad because you might see this seam here. And then all that rust that had going on underneath, I kind of needle gunned and scaled that down to a reasonable appearance, I guess, so we can throw some primer on that as well. So now I'm going to add some Bondo to these areas here. I'm gonna get my scuff pad out and hit the inside areas here, and then we'll sand that Bondo down. Again, I'm not gonna hit the crease areas like this. I can feel one, because I'm just afraid I'm gonna make it worse if I start hammering on that or anything, because, well, I'm not a body guy, and I don't wanna make it worse. So I think it'll be all right. All right, so I went ahead and mixed up some Bondo and found a couple of dents right here, small ones, smoothed those out, and then as well as a dimple that was on the top here. The bigger like kind of crease up here, I'm not messing with those. So once that sets up, we'll sand that Bondo down with the 220. Then we're gonna hit this whole thing with 320, wipe it down, and we're gonna go to the primer. I just found the actual label on this fender, the imprint. It's an actual OEM VW fender. My God, are these things thin. Woo! But anyway, we got our Bondo sanded down, feathered in here. It feels pretty good. I'm not feeling it with my hand, as well as right up in here. So I think we're ready for some primer. So that was 320 grit all the way around. We're gonna give this, we're gonna blow it off. We're gonna give it a wipe down, hit it with a tack rag, and then some grease and wax remover. We're gonna hang it on our rack over there. So we're gonna paint it in the, like it would be on the car in that position instead of laying flat. It's just an easier, better way to paint. Okay, now that I'm blind from looking at it, we got additional light on it now. And actually, there's maybe another dent here. I can't really tell, but oh well, is what it is at this point. We're going for the 1K self-etching primer from Spray Max. They make a 2K, it's even better than this, but this is good primer. We're gonna go ahead and give this thing 2 medium coats, probably about 5 to 10 minutes apart. Then we're gonna let that fully dry, see how that sets up. We may hit it with the 600 grit before we go ahead and top coat it. So we'll get into the primer now. All right, basically I'm gonna hit the spots behind the fender first, the underside and the inner fender. I'm not doing all in here because no one's gonna see that, but just the rusty spots first, around in here, in the top, then we're gonna go do the face of it. So we're gonna get the hard to reach areas first. Now I'm gonna start at the top. There's no rhyme or reason to this. Everybody has a little bit different technique. Make sure that we got in here. Hold the can about 8 inches apart, and we're gonna overlap about half lap. We don't wanna put too much paint on this thing, We're kind of gonna work our way down till we get to the bottom. Let me show you. You can end up with a pretty good result using spray paint. You just gotta be patient. It is what it is, right? So we're doing in the hard to reach areas first. Then we're gonna go back and we're gonna hit the surface with it all. Okay? So now that we did the hard to reach areas, I'm gonna go right across the top here. Like this, overlapping. All right, so I just finished the first coat. Looks like we might have the start of a run there. We're gonna let that go for now and see how we do. We'll let this sit about 10 minutes. We're gonna go ahead and do a second coat. Probably not on the inside, but just overall. Then we're gonna let that dry for a little while. Maybe hit it with 600 grit and start our top coat. All right guys, there is 2 coats on there now. She's still a little wet, so she's blending in, she's setting up. But actually that paint lays on pretty well for a 1K spray paint rattle can, and it lays on there really well. So we're gonna let this sit probably a good half an hour, and then if I have any 600 grit, we're gonna go ahead and give this thing a quick sand before we go ahead and top coat it. So we're gonna let this thing sit for now, and then we'll be ready. All right guys, here we go. The primer coat is all dried now. Now we're gonna hit it with some 600 grit sandpaper, really light. I'm gonna use a piece of wet foam behind the sandpaper as a backer because it helps you contour without your fingers pushing through it. And we're just lightly knocking down the high spots on this. Then we're gonna wipe it down again and go to the top coat. All right guys, so I'm just hand sanding, lightly knocking down any high spots so we're back to a really smooth surface. So the paint has something to adhere to, but it's less likely to have that orange peel finish. This is a single stage salsa red for the VW. So same thing, I'm gonna go around the perimeter and get all these spots. Then we're gonna overlap it and start at the top, work our way down. 1 light coat, and then at least 1 more coat, maybe 2, depending on how the can goes for us. I'll be going around the perimeter first, a nice light coat. I guess they call this a tack coat. Inside the fender, just a light coat. Just so we can get it in, starting to look red, right? I gotta see how I'm overlapping my pattern here. We don't want to go too heavy because we don't want runs, but we don't want to go too light either. The next coat is where she's gonna pop. All right, that is after 1 coat. Obviously still translucent and stuff. We got to get that second wet coat on there. So this time here, I'm gonna go at it and go a little bit heavier because it may be the last coat because we got 1 can, so you do what you can do. Now, you can wet sand and buff this. I wouldn't recommend very much because it doesn't have a lot of paint on it. However, at the very least, we can buff it out. All right, that is after coat number 2, and that is doing the perimeter and all the surfaces. Again, rattle can. So not bad at all. I may be able to get a 3rd coat out of that can, maybe. I don't want to risk it, but I think I'm gonna. I won't be able to do all the perimeters, but on the flat, I'll be able to do, I think, a 3rd coat, and that'll be the end of that can, but at least it gives us something to work with so we can buff it out, really get that shine to come through. All right, guys, here it is, our completely painted fender, complete rattle can. That is not bad as it sits. Honestly, you could run this just the way it is. It's good looking. It came out real nice. All right, so we have the lift. We're gonna use the lift just because it makes it easier. I don't have to lean over or bend over. But we have all the clips and the fasteners where they go. So I mean, there's no direct how to. We're just hanging out, working on Caleb's Volkswagen Jetta. So hopefully the color matches. I think it will. Nothing's too rotted out. It's got a little rust going on down here. But we oil undercoated the underside of this car, so there's plenty of oil in there, I will say that. So let's put it on, bud. Now I just gotta remember where all these screws, bolts and nuts go, because it's been a little while since I painted this thing. It's just been busy in the shop, so I haven't had a chance to get his car in, because we're so close to finishing it up and getting it on the road so he can start driving it, because he does have his permit now. All right, so we're working on our gap right now. It's off a little bit. It's a little wired at the top. Definitely not a body shop by any means. But I'm going to loosen this fastener up and tweak it out a little bit. And then we continue on with the rest of the fasteners. And it's a different shade because obviously the car is faded and it's a 2009. But all in all, the red's right, bud. It does match. So let's finish getting this baby up.
Those are expensive.
So battery terminal grease going on. Fender's done. The grill is in. Air filter's next. Then we're gonna drain the coolant out of it because it's got mismatched coolant in it, and put the right coolant in it. And this thing is almost ready for a sticker and to be on the road.